What a theme does, in my opinion, is it brings your story cohesiveness. Everything that happens in the story ties to this theme.
All right, hey everyone. I am here on vacation, but I'm bringing you another new coaching video. I got the pleasure of being coached by author D.Edwin, who's an amazing science fiction author. She recently released a book called Master of the Arena, the sequel to her first book, Headspace, which was fantastic. And we're doing a partnership right now with D.Edwin. If you get her book and email your receipt to bonus@storycartel.com, and we'll put that email address in the description. You get writing trainings from D.Edwin and The Right Practice that are worth over $100, which is a pretty cool thing, right? You spend $5.99 to get the book, $100 in trainings, not bad. So make sure you go get a copy of D.Edwin's book, Master of the Arena. Forward the receipt to bonus@storycartel.com. Again, we'll have the instructions on how to do this in the description, and you will get these bonuses. Pretty cool. All right? All right. Go get the book and enjoy this coaching session. Happy writing. We'll see you later. Well, this is very exciting. I am here with D.Edwin, also known as Jing, who is going to be doing some coaching for me today. I'm kind of nervous about this, Jing. I feel like you're going to rip into my book.
Well, just from a book plan, I'm probably not going to do that. That's for later.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. We're talking about theme today. So what do I need to know about theme?
Well, first of all, what's your thoughts on theme? Do you usually use themes in your writing?
That's a good question. I actually don't. You know, I kind of think of theme as something that it would be nice if you knew exactly what your theme is. And especially for the early stages, most of the time you don't. And so I don't really believe in focusing on it for the most part. And I definitely don't focus on it in early drafts.
That's so scandalous. You can't let people know that theme is important, especially when you're writing a whole book.
You'll have to convince me. I don't know.
I guess so. Do you feel like you just don't like the idea of theme, or is it just too hard to incorporate?
No, I mean, I feel like my books mean something and my storytelling means something. Some of it is, I think it takes a while to figure out what that thing is, but it feels a little boxy to me.
Okay, fair enough.
Plantser, I'm kind of a plantser. It rebels against these sorts of things, even though I wrote a book about story structure, you know, so I clearly believe in some structure, but it feels a little bit boxy.
Well, it's actually very easy to fit theme into story structure. And I actually used to not like the idea of theme either. Like I took all my middle school and high school English classes and I was like, theme, what do you mean talk about the theme of this book? What does that mean? Actually. And I feel like a lot of people feel that way. People don't get told you gotta incorporate theme into your story, you gotta talk about the theme of this and that, but people don't know what that means.
Yeah.
What does that really mean? So it wasn't until multiple years after I left school that I finally ran into this random online training, this tiny little webinar that it really demystified theme for me. So I guess to start with, theme is supposed to be the central idea. It's almost this philosophy that you're trying to communicate to your readers. And I was looking at your book here, right? It's kind of a mystery crime, bit of a supernatural crime thing. You've got this boy and he's encountering the ghost of his dead best friend, right? And he's trying to solve this mystery. In the end, well, I'm not going to spoil the whole story for one day when it comes out, but it seems like there's a lot of things about relationships.
Sure. To me. Yeah. Yeah. And I could share the premise if that would be helpful. All right. So the premise is a young prodigy prepares for a worldwide violin competition while being confronted by the ghost of his best friend.
So when I looked at your book plan, what really stood out to me was there's multiple aspects of his relationships with other people in this story. There's the relationship between him and his dead best friends. There's a girl that he's trying to impress. There's his teacher, and then also his parents, right? All these people that he's interacting with.
Parent, his dad died.
Okay, his parent. And at the end, you actually have this reunion where all the people that he cares about are in the scene with him. And just spitballing here to me that maybe the theme of your story has to do with relationships and what's important maybe versus what's not important in life, because
for sure.
I'm seeing here that he goes through a degree of sacrifice on his own part for the sake of the people in his life. So for me, that communicates a theme of what's important in life, like goals versus relationships, perhaps, because he started the story completely focused on this goal, right? This violin competition, he's trying to impress this girl, he's got this teacher who really wants him to succeed. And at the end, it seems like maybe that's not the most important thing in life when he realized this, that there's more to life in this, helping his friend, helping his family, even though he does not do well at the end in one aspect, he still has the friendships and the relationships. That's what's really important in life.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting what you say, because I think a lot of times it's a performance story.
Okay.
And I think a lot of times when you're looking at performance, it's really about like, how do I look good in front of my community? And another way to put that would be like, how do I best serve my community, my relationships, the people, in my world.
That's a really good point about that, because in your story, it's like in the end, he found what is really the best way to serve his community.
Gift, right? To give them. That's good.
His gift is not what he initially thought it was, which means it could be a theme of inner transformation, that he starts out focusing on one way that he thinks is the best path forward, and in the end, that changes his perspective of what's truly important in life. It's an inner journey to me.
Yeah.
So if we were to reduce the theme down to a few words, because the best themes are simple, succinct, there you go. Would you say it is self-discovery? Would it be growth? Is it change? Is it a shifting of values?
Yeah, no, I think definitely a shift in values from one where, just as you were saying, like the goal is to win and to earn prestige and, future money, fame, success, to, it's almost like, this sounds stupid, but he's a violin player, and I think there's something about music that offers transcendence of the moment and transcendence of circumstance and kind of holistic, you are yourself in that moment when you are caught up in music, right?
I like that a lot, actually. That's really great. So if we were to talk about incorporating this whole theme of transcendence and transforming values into your story, what the theme does, in my opinion, is it brings your story cohesiveness. Everything that happens in the story ties to this theme. You start out wanting to emphasize, for example, his initial state of mind, how he views this goal of succeeding in his violin, in his craft. And you would want to emphasize early on, maybe he overlooks the things around him in favor of this one thing, and then show that transformation in the middle. And at the end, you would want to show him, maybe even in the climax, as he plays in the final competition, he could feel that transcendence of the music, like you said, and it could represent the transformation that he underwent himself. And maybe at the end, you could show that he's now viewing his relationships, friends and family, the way he initially viewed his craft. And the two ends of the story would mirror each other. There's also ways to incorporate theme, and this is kind of a trick that I learned from that webinar, which is to incorporate a theme. All you really have to do is insert keywords and phrasing that revolves around the theme. And I once cited this example in an article I wrote on theme. And the easiest way to demonstrate this is, for example, if you are trying to show the theme of aging, somebody getting, let's say it's a scene of somebody sitting at a bus stop and she's looking at her environment around her, at the fall leaves, at kids playing. You could just describe that straight up. Or if you want to insert the theme of aging, you would want to focus on how the turning of the season and the leaves makes her reflect on her own changes in life, how she's in the fall season of her life. That maybe the sound of people walking sounds like the tick-tocking of a clock, which again signifies the passage of time. So now you've got this whole theme of time passing and her feeling her own age. But if you want to change the scene of that, let's say it now have a transformation scene. Let's say it's the still same character, but she's entering a new phase of life and she's excited about it. She might view the changing leaves as an old season is done and the new season is coming, and children playing on the streets are signs of new beginnings. Everyone's heading into this new life, new phase of life. People walking look like people heading somewhere new, doing new things. So by enhancing elements in a scene can change whatever theme that you want to be. And every scene can be manipulated like that to make the whole story seem more cohesive.
Sure. Yeah. So if we were talking about succinctly describing the theme, what's your formula or your model for how to do that using my story as an example?
I would say your theme is usually what guides your main character throughout the story. It's their value. I think that's the best word I can come up with. It's their value that they hold dear throughout the story. And people talk about values as something core to themselves. So you're trying to figure out what is the value being held by this character. When you figure out what it is that they want at the start of the story, and whether that's still the same thing at the end. And in general, most stories are going to be about transformation of some kind. You're swapping one value for another. And when you figure out what those two values are, you will generally figure out what your theme is.
Okay. So I'm just like writing down for this kid, he's very focused on technical precision. I'm just going to share my screen because it's probably terrible. You tell me how you would change it. So if we were to put the theme here, he's focused on prestige and success by way of technical precision, right? Mm-hmm. And then the transformation is to offering transcendence to his community.
That's actually a really good start, because you have multiple levels of transformation here. It's possible to have more than one theme. Some of them will complement each other, but what you have here, the first one is you see technical precision.
Okay, so you're saying that's different.
You have this transformation of the technical precision to transcendence, which is a more spiritual thing. He's going from a more rigid frame of mind to something a little more spiritual. And then the prestige and success to community, which means he's changing his values from this idea of craft and skill success to communicating with more of what's around him. So in a way, he's expanding outside himself. If you think about these two items together, he's starting out very inwardly focused. And that can very much be, was your story going to be in first or third?
Third person.
Third person?
It was in first person originally, and now I'm doing a rewrite and changing it to third.
Is it a third person limited or?
Third person very limited.
Very limited. Okay. So, third person limited is very much similar to first person, right? It's telling a story from one person's point of view, which is really good for this theme of going from the inner focus to the outer focus, because you can start out showing how inwardly focused he is, that maybe he's not as aware of the stuff around him. He's thinking about the technical aspects of his music, maybe his practice schedule, maybe the notes that he needs to play, maybe the little bits of knowledge that he needs to focus on. And toward the end, he becomes more outwardly focused, that maybe during his transcendent period, maybe he begins to feel that there's more to music than just the technical aspects of it. Music, like I said, it's transcendent, it is different, it is spiritual, it's emotional, and that change can be a really good carry through for the theme.
Sure. Yeah. So would you say that this is how you would think about your theme, or would you put it in a sentence, or how would you do that?
It's difficult to put in a sentence, but I would say this is, let's say you start with your main character's initial goals, then their final goal, which is what you have did here, and then you break it down to what that change is. And then here's where you kind of have to get a little creative and ask yourself the question of what it is you want to communicate with these changes. Because what I'm seeing here is an inner focus to an outer focus, and that's a theme that I'm seeing. You may be seeing something different. Maybe you're seeing a change from a rigid mindset to a more spiritual mindset. Maybe that's what you want to communicate. Maybe you want to talk about different levels of awareness, that you start out focusing on what's these little things in front of you, and then you are focusing on something else. It's not necessarily about inner and outer. Maybe it's about the level of focus. So that's a question you have to ask yourself, is what are you trying to accomplish with this change in the character?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so some backstory is that this was just a normal kid, and his best friend was the prodigy, and his best friend dies, and his ghost goes to possess the violin that his best friend inherits. So he becomes a prodigy kind of overnight. And it's the idea of what would you do if you were overnight a genius, right? How would that change your life? And then he's wrestling with this idea of genius, had wanted to be a genius, was not, and then was. And what do you do with that, right? And then moving past that to the transformation is how do you serve the community the best? What is the best way to serve the community. And without giving away too much of the story, the way he gives is by releasing his genius. He lets his genius go and he becomes a normal person, but he's connected with the music, he's connected with the art, right?
Okay, that's actually really good. So maybe you have another more central theme that you want to lay on top of this is what does it mean to have a gift? What does it mean to be exceptional? In his journey to figure out that. And through that is when he initially starts out thinking that being gifted, that having received this gift from his friend, he needs to make the best of it by focusing on the technical aspect of everything and use this skill in the most precise and technical manner that he can, until the end when he realized the best way to be a prodigy or make use of his genius is actually to be more connected to the community.
Yeah. It's almost like his first approach to the gift is to hoard it and use it for himself. So kind of more of a selfish.
Right, which again is an inward focus. He starts out with this inward focus.
Versus like release or connection. I mean, I think all of these are true, right? Still.
They all still fit into the theme of from an inner focus to an outer focus. Maybe a theme of being closed in and then opening up. Maybe he starts out the feeling even isolated by his gift because he's so focused on just keeping this gift to himself and seeing what he can do with it in terms of technical success, which means his revelation at the end is that the true gift or the true purpose of the gift is to connect with those around him.
It's good. No, this is actually helpful. It's making me rethink some early scenes. I don't know. I think about like that. It's like pour, it's like cold to warm,
Yeah, that's a good comparison.
Like at the beginning, he's very focused on himself, on all of these cold things to like more of a warm communal focus,
and you
connection,
can actually
transcendence.
Think about that like keyframes in a movie. Have you seen keyframes that they do for movies? It's like art that they do for movies, especially animated film.
Like storyboarding?
Yeah, storyboarding, but keyframes are stuff that defines a moment.
I see.
They're defining moments. Like, let's say we just watched The Bad Guys. I don't know if you guys saw that.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, but I've heard good things.
It starts out with this Pulp Fiction reference where two of the characters are sitting in a diner. And they would have a keyframe where it shows what the lighting is, what the mood is, basically something to reference that whole scene on. And that's what I kind of think of when we think of a transformation of cold to warm. You can imagine the early scenes having kind of a blue tone to them, and the later ones having a warm orangey tone. And again, you can express that by using theme-focused words. Maybe there's a rainy, cold day at the beginning of the book. Maybe his room is simple and lacks decoration and is just very basic. And at the end, there's this celebration, reunion, sunny days.
Well, so that's actually really good. So I've been thinking, I'm like redoing this whole book right now, and this is the third draft, but it's going to be like brand new. And it's all going to take place. And I mean, the idea is that it will all take place in one setting, like one room.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Now the room might change, but like it's going to be very simple from a setting standpoint, almost like a play.
Okay.
And I almost see it like as we go through the story, we see more and more of his surroundings. And like if it were a play, like the stage lights would come up a little bit, but with a novel, which is a little bit funny. But no, I think that's cool. It's an interesting.
That's actually a very intriguing visual. to think about, a whole story that mostly takes place in one room,
Yeah.
which means that the way you describe the room can change throughout the story. Like maybe in his first practice in the room, it's raining and there's rain pounding against the window, but as time goes on toward the end, maybe he just realizes, I never noticed how the sun comes out and streaks through those same windows on a good day. It's so many ways to do that. That's such an interesting visual arrangement.
That's really good. I mean, I hadn't thought of that. I mean, you can see how theme might be very influential to more than just the main story, influencing the words you use, influencing the setting descriptions.
Have I won you over on theme yet?
No, I mean, I definitely see how it could be helpful. Whether it's helpful for a first draft, I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, for a first draft, it can be a little iffy. It might be something you have to note down as you go rather than write into it and then try to incorporate it in later.
Yeah. And I also think, what people say in terms of theme varies across many different writers. Everyone has their own definition of theme, but I like this of transformation because it's how I think about stories already as transformation, as changes, so it's a really simple, easy way to think through it.
Structure, right? Your character
right.
is supposed to go through a certain transformation throughout the story. Otherwise, they're not growing
exactly
as characters through the structure of the story.
Cool. Well, D.Edwin, Jing, this is helpful. Thank you. And you are launching a book right now.
Yes, I am.
How's that going? What's the theme you're working on, or you're launching Master of the Arena? So tell us what the theme, would you say, of your book is?
I think the theme of Master of the Arena is finding a bigger purpose outside of yourself. It starts out with Nasmi Cole, the main character who had just survived Headspace, and she's got to start this whole new life among aliens who are all very stressful, crazy people. And her early instinct is just to survive because she lost everything after the games. But eventually she starts to find more purpose. She starts to adopt, in a sense, these new champions of the game and make them into her children, initially as a replacement of the child she lost on her planet. And she begins to find a bigger and bigger purpose outside of herself until she ultimately becomes a showrunner of the games, all for the sake of her children. Whether it was a good or ethical choice remains to be seen, but the theme, I would say, is finding a larger purpose.
Well, congratulations on the launch. Very exciting. I'm sure it will do very well. And thanks
Fingers
for
crossed.
all of this great knowledge that you shared with us.
Thanks for having me.